Welcome back to Hope and the Truth with me, Rochelle Baltimore. Thank you for staying. I'm Parvin, and everyone's most interesting, I don't know if it's their favorites, their interesting sections. The news you might not have heard about. Now, normally, I don't tell the guest the topic, because before it was just news stories, and you know what, now I have enough news stories to become topics. I did inform Rochelle, because I gave her the option, like, this is on the stages I'm talking about this. The topic, and the thing this will absolutely scare the peanuts right out of your Cracker Jacks, is going to be the rise of Luciferianism in this country. The thing that should bother you is not the title, let's see what he's going to talk about crazy today, is the amount of information that's been found that it only took me 2 years of stuff that's been going on longer than that. So let's just jump right into this. First article, this was on September 17, 2014, so we're not going to go back too far. Satanic coloring books distributed at Florida public schools. I will always, as always, post the links and where you can look up these news stories yourself. This decision was in response to a Christian group being allowed to distribute Bibles a year ago. Okay, very interesting. They went the legal approach. Here's the quote from the Satanic Temple spokesperson. Okay, his name is Lucian Greaves. His name's going to come up again. I am quite certain that all of the children in these Florida schools are already aware of the Christian religion and its Bible, and this might be the first exposure these children have to actual practice of Satanism. All right, so that's the first story. Next story, let's fast forward a year ahead. July 27, 2015. Hundreds gathered for the unveiling of a satanic statue in Detroit. More specifically, that was the statue of Baphomet. Now, some people might remember this story from about a year ago. There was an unveiling in Detroit. Not many people really know what that is. Let's give you some background. The statue of Baphomet, or Lucifer, is a hermaphroditic statue. It has both organs and has two children standing on either side of it. There was a group of 700, all right, that turned out for this, and this was thought to be at the time the largest public satanic ceremony in history. All right, it's 2015. A month later, August 10th, 2015, the goddess Kali projected on the New York Empire State Building. Now, not many people heard this story. Kali is known, by the way, as the goddess of destruction. While I'm not putting down anyone else's belief system, I'm going to get a little more into what Kali worship actually is. This was in reference to, while they were doing this in New York, what they had claimed is that it was a week of extinct animals that were going extinct. And at the end of this, they figured, why not use the goddess of destruction to kind of follow it up? And if I can, I'll post a picture of what that was put up there. The image was projected on the Empire State Building as part of a display meant to spark awareness of a massive wildlife extinction. I'd like to take it a little step further and actually give you a little background on Kali worship. In the 19th century India, there was a cult dedicated to worship of Kali. They were known as Thuggies. You might remember this group. They were portrayed in Indiana Jones' Temple of Doom.
That's right.
Okay? Now, while they didn't kill people with lava, they were actually associated with strangulation. In fact, the Guinness Book of Records says they were responsible for 2 million deaths. Interesting. Let's fast forward to this year. September 15, 2016. Temple of Baal opened in New York. Now, you might remember hearing about this earlier in the year. This is a concept known as the boy who cried wolf mentality.
Yes.
This was talked about actually back in April earlier this year, where they were going to unveil this temple in both. And by the way, the temple looks like an Arc de Triomphe. We'll get into what that actually means. In London and in New York. It was unveiled in Trafalgar Square in New York, and they said, well, we don't want it in New York, it's not going to come. What ended up happening was silently, and the same evening as the UN summit, this was unveiled in City Hall Park. And no one was actually aware of that, but yes, it's already up in New York. Where was this at? By the way, pagan god Baal is the son of the pagan god Dagon, who the Philistines worshipped. It was erected in City Hall Park the same day as the UN summit. 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 21 speaks of Elijah's confrontation with over 400 Baal worshippers. So I invite you to look back on scripture and find out what happened. It didn't turn out too good for the Baal worshippers. And the last story, and this is September 28, 2016, so recent stories. Satanic Temple opening its international headquarters in Salem. All right. The temple plans to use the location, a former funeral home, for art shows, lectures, and film screenings. Although one might suspect that residents would be uneasy with an international headquarters for Satanism, the town reported few complaints. The history of Salem is also part of the history of Satanism. And this was said by Lucian Greaves. Where have I seen his name before? Oh, back in 2014 with the coloring books. Isn't that funny how we're coming around full circle? By the way, the Satanic Temple boasts over 40,000 members. I think that number is actually lower. Now, I know people are going to say, listen, it's a coincidence. It's freedom of expression. It's freedom of religion. Well, I'm going to share some other statistics with you. Because there's one thing of freedom, there's another thing with an agenda. In 1962, prayer was taken out of the public school. In 1963, Bibles were removed. In 1980, the Ten Commandments were removed. In 2005, the Bible monument removed from Houston Courthouse. In 2015, removed the Ten Commandments from the Oklahoma Capitol. In 2016, the Bible makes list of books most challenged at libraries. Now, to me, that doesn't seem like really an equal thing. It kind of seems almost like an agenda. Comments?
Oh, yeah, we could go on and on about this. And we actually talk about a lot of this with our kids, by the way. If we haven't seen certain things that are happening today, I won't even mention them. As a matter of fact, even today with the killings that are going on, not just to a certain ethnic group, but also mass shootings. Mm-hmm. But we don't pay attention to who they're happening to, why they're happening, and what the end result out of it is. We're not paying attention to that. We're not also going back in history, which, by the way, this is some of the things that have to do with history in school. A lot of things, if you keep repeating it, keep going over it, you have no choice but to keep repeating it. Yes. And what happens is, in order for you to stay in a focus, they begin to take things away from you. Hence, taking away Bible, taking away saying prayer in school, taking away art. They're taking away everything to keep you streamlined in what is it they want you to know.
And people become very kind of asleep.
Yes.
And so they're saying, people will say, well, listen, they have every right to have that belief, but you don't.
Right, exactly. You have, matter of fact, you really don't have a say-so. And a touchy subject. So when things are happening and they say you have a voice, they only mean just so you can hear your own voice. It does not affect what their agenda is. Absolutely. So it doesn't matter about you voicing your opinion, voters. But they already have an agenda, and the agenda has been set. They have to play the motion so that you feel like you're having a voice.
And this is a nightmare emotion.
And it is
a
nightmare emotion. Yes, it's a nightmare emotion.
Yes.
And that's why we have it to where you have yours, we're having ours. You know. And and you touched on another subject, because we talk about the faith and having that connection. Because faith is really about having the connection. You're going to have the Bible where they have a lot of stories, a lot of preamble to what is to come or what has happened. But I always tell you, if you get into your own connection, you will get your answers.
Absolutely.
Oh, you will get your answers. And therefore, you don't have to worry about the outside trying to tell you their agenda.
Of course.
To try to keep you in line with it. So the thing that will have to happen is we have to have more connections even with each other in order to help combat some of the agendas that are going on. And until we make that shift, the agendas will continue to move.
It's making people aware, so your faith can't be shaken. That's why it's faith.
That's right.
That's why it's faith, because you believe, and of course you're going to get people that don't believe, and that's fine. It's not about hate. It's about love. And that's the thing, that concept that throws people off.
Right. And that saying is actually backwards. It's not, I'll see it and then believe it. You have to believe it.
Of course.
Then it will manifest.
Of course. But we use stuff we can touch, taste.
Yeah, see it, tangible, whatever.
Thank you for coming by, Rochelle Baltimore. And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite scriptures. I like reading scripture.
No.
John, all right, chapter 16, verse 31. Jesus answered them, "Do ye now believe? Behold, the hour cometh. Yes, the hour is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone, and yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken unto you, that in ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." We'll see you next time on Hope and the Truth Give your life to Jesus Christ. I'm Lance Parvin.